Yo, yo,
What's up, sir?
it's popping, man.
Man, welcome to Hard Knock TV.
I'm ready, bro.
So I like to start interviews. Usually the artists that I interview don't have a whole series about their life, but I like to start interviews kind of like an opening scene in a movie. Take me back to your childhood in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Like, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling?
Well, you're smelling sofrito and all that Spanish food, but at the same time, I come from a really, my family was going through a really bad moment in Lawrence, Massachusetts. It was the 80s. It was the crack and cocaine era. My mom was, on drugs. My dad was on drugs as well. And it was a very dark environment. My house, you can imagine two drug addicts raising kids and going through all that. But there was always good times. There was always music. There was always parties. There was always family parties. Like any environment in the hood, like there's good times and bad times. It was very hard for me, but I don't know, man. I just got this energy that even in bad moments, I always seem to know how to be a survivor and live a good time. Back in Lawrence was a Irish city when I started when I was getting raised in Lawrence. It was a mix of Dominican, Puerto Ricans, and mostly Irish. And hip hop was going on, and like all that music, and I was just in love with the hip hop music. And
what were some of the sounds that remind you of that time when you say hip hop was going on? What was around you?
It was Harry B and Rakim. It was a Tribe Called Quest. You could say El Cool J, Big Daddy Kane. Those were the rappers that were killing the game in those days. And I was just, I just wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to dress like them, rap like them. And I was very young, but I fell in love with that music since I was a kid.
If you're in Massachusetts, I would imagine around that time, Marky Mark was probably popping around that time.
He was doing his thing, yeah. He was doing his. I even thought that was nice in that moment. Like for some reason, like sometimes I don't know if it happened to you, but if you watch MTV and all these shows and about songs that wasn't really a hit, I didn't know it wasn't a hit. I just heard the song on the radio. I thought if it was in the radio, it was a hit. So I used to like Marky Mark. I'm not gonna lie. I was a kid, so for me it wasn't like it was too corny or nothing like that. For me it was like bad, and for some reason Irish kids don't look like white. They're kind of like, I feel like Irish are like Spanish guys. You know what I'm saying? Like or black. Like they have that spice on them.
I remember seeing Good Vibrations a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, it took me back to a moment in life when I used to think that song was popping. So you're in Massachusetts as a kid. We kind of had the opposite lives because I was raised in Argentina until I was 8, and then I moved to Oakland. So I didn't speak any English when I came to the States. You kind of took the other route when you were young. You moved to PR. Tell me about like those early days and kind of like maybe a culture shock that happened when you moved from the States to PR, not necessarily speaking Spanish, fully.
I mean, I was from the hood in Lawrence. I'm not saying Lawrence is the hood, but it has a hood. And I was from that hood. And when I went to Puerto Rico, I saw the real hood. And I'm not saying that Puerto Rico's a hood, but it has a hood. I got a couple of hoods. So I went to over there and I saw how kids were like selling drugs with no shirt on. You know what I'm saying? Like young kids, 12, 13 years old. It's like 100 kids, they would throw themselves to your car. Like, yo, I got you. Da, da, da. I wasn't used to that. In the States, it's not the way, you roll. I was impacted by how many lizards you would see in the middle of the streets. I remember I ran to my dad like, Dad, there's a whole bunch of crocodiles in the streets. He looked and it was just lizards. I'm talking about thousands of them. In Miami is normal. You can see them in Miami because Miami is kind of like the Caribbean, but Lawrence, you don't see lizards. So for me, it was crazy. It was like, wow, this is a weird place to be. Like this is full of lizards and, like people selling drugs with no shirt on, you know, the way they danced music, you know what I'm saying? They liked the reggae music I fell in love with that, you know what I'm saying? But they was more into Caribbean dancehall, Jamaican vibe than hip hop. And I wasn't used to seeing people dancing and grinding up on each other like that. Like people in the States dance separated, you know, back in the 90s and in the 80s. Now they dance like anybody, you know.
It's funny. We had the opposite stuff because I came from a culture that was passionate and warm, and you meet someone and you kiss them and you hug them. 8-year-old kid coming to Oakland, I go to kiss and hug people when I first meet them, and they're like, "Whoa, step back! Like we need our space."
Yeah. Especially Argentina. Even the men kiss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me when I went over there. The guy who came, he was like, "Yo, it was good." And then no, that's the way we do it here. After a while, I was kissing everybody, man. I just started, come over here.
One of the special moments in the series is you're working at a grocery store. I think it was Pueblo Extra discount store or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, take me to those days. You know, you're obviously working because you got to make some money, but at the same time, you know, you're passing your time by, you know, just rhyming for people. What were those days like?
I've always been the type of guy that liked entertaining people since I was a kid. So, you know, I was trying to, you know, bring some money to my house, you know. I remember I always try to make $20 a day. And I would like pack groceries, and I started freestyling with everything that I was like packing. I'm like, I got the milk with the Coca-Cola, hola, da-da-da-la. Like people love that, man. They and I became like a little celebrity over there in aisle 12. I remember I was always in aisle 12, and people was like, yo, you gotta go check out the kid on aisle 12. He's always freestyling and stuff like that. And the manager of the wife of a manager saw me, and she scooped me up, and she took me to her house, and I met her man, and that's when I came out with my first deal.
What was that moment when it went from like being a hobby to like, this is what I want to do for like a career for my life?
I started since I was a kid, so I didn't really know the difference. Like, it's not like I was singing underground for 5 or 10 years. Nah, as soon as I started doing music, a year after, I was already signed and did an album. But I wasn't famous or nothing like that, but I had a little bit of fame. And the album didn't do good, but people from the streets, DJs from the streets liked my style, and that's how I got into the mixtapes.
If someone were to open up the Nicky Jam musical DNA, like what are we seeing in there?
DNA? What do you mean? Like,
it's another way of saying, like, what were your influences? Like, what were the things that make Nicky Jam who he is musically?
I could say a mix of Michael Jackson, El Cool J, Juan Luis Guerra, combined with Jose. It's a weird combination. It's a weird combination, but that combination made me, you know.
We have to pick 3 like other people's musical albums that are kind of like embody who Nicky Jam is. What albums do you think you would choose?
Okay, there's this album that this group called Sublime. I don't know, you being from Oakland, you probably know about them.
Yeah.
They were kind of like their music was kind of like ska, like like reggae type of vibe. I could say that. I could say JC's album Reasonable Doubt, The Blueprint, and Eminem's album.
Which one?
Marshall Mathers.
Marshall Mathers. Why do you think those albums represent who you are?
Because they all gave me kind of like the vibe of what I would like to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you could say that the Sublime had all the melodies and all that reggae vibe that I like to do, and you know that Reasonable Doubt. That album was like, you know, like just speaking the truth. You know what I'm saying? But speaking it in a nice way. You know, making it sound so nice to hear. So you know, it's. And Eminem is because Eminem had no hair in his tongue, you know what I'm saying? Like he would say anything, and he was so good with words. So Like all those albums made me want to do albums, you know?
Take me to the first wave of reggaeton, because you're an artist that has been a crucial part of both waves. The early wave, I feel like there were a lot of hurdles back then that you guys, there's a lot of doors that you guys broke down just so that this generation can have the success that it's having. Paint the picture for those early days. I mean, from the criminalization in Puerto Rico of reggaeton to like maybe the radio wasn't feeling it at first. What were some of like those early obstacles that you guys had to kind of like break down for reggaeton to have the global impact that it has now?
Well, you know, I'm one of the architects of this music. I started this music years ago, and I had to knock on a lot of doors. And there was even a time where the government didn't want our music to be around, and they were like, you know, police will break your CDs in half and make you pay money if you were listening to that music. They used to call it underground music, and we won't get no sponsorship. We won't get no TV. They would treat us like trash in TV channels, and you know, if it wasn't because people like Coyote and all these DJs that started doing their own radio stations, we won't be not even in the radio. So it was hard, man. It was hard.
At a time when a lot of people thought that it was a fad and it wasn't going to be around as long as it has, what did you envision for it? Did you have any idea that it would have the global impact that it has had now?
I always believed. I always knew it was going to be big. I always felt that we had something different from everybody. You know, it's a drug. Our music is a drug. Well, till this day, there's trap influence and all that, and they still got to listen to reggaeton. You know what I'm saying? Like, trap was going big in the Spanish market, and then reggaeton came back again. The beat is so much, it takes over.
Tell me about reinventing yourself. I mean, you went to Colombia. You reinvented yourself personally and also artistically too. I mean, when you first came out, it was more the hard lyrics, and then it became more melodic. And what was that process like for you?
It was the best thing for me because I was listening to the music vallenato, and that music vallenato, there were storytellers, you know, and that's what I did and that's what I bring to the table. That's what I learned from being in Colombia. And that's what made Nicky Jam sound different from everybody else. You know, today we have a lot of those, but we didn't have that when I came out. So, you know, just storytelling and, you know, the influence of vallenato music gave me a color. And that's what I bring to the table.
For what I read, that you were, you were singing at a hotel and doing that.
A little bit before I went to Colombia, I was singing, I was doing covers in hotels. That helped me too, because I didn't even know I could sing that good, you know? And they needed somebody to sing at a hotel. It was a cheap hotel. And I said, yeah, I do it. And I started singing all these romantic songs in Spanish. And I discovered myself as a vocalist because I was used to be a rapper. I didn't know I had a voice to sing that way, you know? Someone
could take a step back and say, man, you went through a lot, but it seems like every step that you took helped shape you into who you are now. Like if you had a chance to change some things, if you had a chance to talk to like a 15-year-old self, would you change anything? Or do you feel like you had to go through everything that you went through to get to this point?
I would definitely change doing drugs, 100%. Because till this day, I still pay for that. A lot of things in my system that don't work the same. You know, my brain doesn't function the same. But I'm such a genius that I still could outdo that, you know. I was even having problems with my motor system, you know, just to move my hands and do all kinds of things. And if I accomplished everything I accomplished with my problem, imagine me being free of drugs. There was no stopping me ever.
There's a lot of people that when they hit the rock bottoms that you hit, wouldn't have bounced back the way you did. What do you think is what gave you that resiliency?
I did it for them. I did it for my family. I felt that my family needed to, I need to break the chains of drugs. And I felt that I needed to take care of my family. And God gave me a gift and a talent. And I wasn't being grateful with God. You know, so automatically what I did was I said, you know what? I'm gonna get my shit together, because if I got my shit together, my family's gonna be good. And that's what I did.
One of my favorite parts of the series is when you're in the Dominican Republic and your mom shows up to the concert after not seeing her for a long time. What was that moment like?
It felt like it was worth it, because I did music because I wanted to meet my mom, you know. I thought if I was famous, she would find me, you know. And that's exactly what happened. So I was listening to a voice inside my head my whole life, and that voice didn't fail, you know, and it felt good. It felt good to see that that I had a plan since I was a kid, and it worked. I feel proud, you know. It's one of my best accomplishments, on top of any success, like, you know, like winning a Grammy or billboards, etc. You know.
What was that moment that you made your parents proud?
I mean, just doing a comeback, that made my dad happy, because it came to a point where the world is so rough that they even make fun of me or my dad. And they would tell my dad, like, yo, what's up with your son, man? He was popping, he knew nothing anymore. So my dad see that I came back stronger than ever. I think he was like, wow, I got a king here, you know what I'm saying? Like, that makes me proud, you know, because it's something that not a lot of people can do a comeback. And not a lot of people could say they can make their dad proud 100%. You know, it's hard. It's hard to make your dad proud, you know what I'm saying? And I did it.